And I think we're live. Alrighty then. Well, welcome to the first live weather discussion, live chat for 2024. We have a lot to talk about. We have a lot of upgrades. We have our new whiteboard where I'm going to be able to pull up some maps, draw on them, and go over all the details more. So hopefully that the camera picks up and there isn't too much glare. But we're going to test on that. We're going to try to improve that best as possible. And of course, we're going to be answering all your questions and going over all of the information on our upcoming storm. As I can see, you can tell there's always a winter storm on the way because the live chat just explodes with a number of people in the premium chat and of course in the YouTube chat. And of course, we'll also follow up on X to see if there's any updates. As always, my lovely wife Susan is here to help with the moderation and to keep me sane and let me know when it's actually 9 o'clock. So sometimes I lose track of time. So now we got all that out of the way. Let's talk about our weather pattern and our storm because we have a lot to cover here. So first of all, I want to go over the overall pattern that we are in. And currently right now we are MJO phase 3. Now, remember, it's not, when you're looking at the MJO, it is not a situation where you look at phase 3 and that's the impacts today. There's always a little bit of a lag. So we're feeling more of an influence from phase 2, and we're going to be continuing feeling influence of phase 3. Phase 3 during January is a cold phase, which we are going to be confronting quite a bit by the time we get to the middle of January. That cold phase continues until we get to phase 4. Maybe. You see, the model guidance is a bit split here. The GFS is going into phase 4, eventually phase 5. The CFS guidance takes you through phase 6. These are generally warm phases during an El Nino year, but there's a little bit of another signal, which we'll talk about in just a moment, that might be fighting that. So there's going to be a lot of noise in the long-range guidance if this actually happens. Then we could take a look at the European solution. Well, that takes you into phase 4, but then goes very quickly into a neutral phase and rapidly towards phase 7. So the tropical forcing is rather volatile, and that's going to lead to a subtropical jet stream that is going to lead to a trough in the west, but more of a zonal pattern in the east, in the subtropical jet stream. Then we get to the polar jet stream, and that's a different story altogether. If I pulled up the data correctly, of course. Okay, here we are. Right now, in the polar jet stream, the influence is falling under the stratospheric warming, which we've been talking about for weeks. It has happened. We're under 5 days now where we're going to seriously see a very impressive stretch in the polar vortex and this split. What that generally means is that the potential for high latitude blocking goes through the roof. And that is where we start to see this feature here. So when you see this feature here, usually that means it gets pretty cold in the eastern United States. But the MJO phases, they're trying to fight up against that, which is why you're seeing this trough here in the west. But you have this broad trough in the polar jet stream with an impressive block and a progressive, fast-moving subtropical jet stream. What this typically leads to is a lot of storms trying to cut up towards the Ohio River Valley and then redevelop off the mid-Atlantic coast. So a lot of Miller B storms as we move through January. However, if the MJO ends up moving more towards a neutral state, then what happens is that the subtropical jet stream and polar jet stream interact far more favorably, and you end up with Miller A type storms, which is basically a storm that comes out of the Gulf of Mexico, shoots right up the coast, far easier to forecast. You don't have to worry about whether or not the short waves are catching at the right time, and usually leads to widespread heavy snowfall. So we have the first part here, the block. I mean, you can't ask for a better block than what we have here. And we're going to have the cold air come in. It's going to get chilly, especially by the middle of January throughout the entire country. This is going to be the time period where we're going to have some sustained cold weather. The question next is, how do the shortwaves interact as we move forward? So that is going to be a bit of a challenge to figure out as we move forward through January. And then we're going to see the same pattern continuing on into February, making my life very, very complicated in this setup. In the meantime, we have what we're dealing with right now, which is a complicated and interesting storm evolution. And I start off first with the observations here, because the fact that we see a robust subtropical shortwave here producing, and actually overproduced in terms of precipitation, marching off the coast, it just misses the interaction with the polar shortwave. So this could have been a more impressive storm, but we just don't have the blocking right now. So this heads out and this heads out and sends just a few snow showers for us tomorrow, and that's about it. Why am I talking about this when everyone's focusing on this storm? Well, how the cold air comes in and how the blocking sets up once this shortwave and this shortwave phase and explode over the northern Atlantic sets up the blocking to make this storm even possible. So I'm going to continue to keep an eye on that just to make sure that aspect works out just right. Looks like it should, but you could see this is a great example of how one storm, which may not lead to the greatest impacts for your neck of the woods, can lead to a far more impressive storm a couple of days later because of what happens upstream. So a lot of interaction is going to be setting up over the Atlantic with this shortwave. When we take a look at the water vapor satellite picture, you can see this storm setting up. And the idea with this storm, and what has changed over the past couple of days, is that this short wave will start to get sheared out a little bit and a little bit disorganized while it starts to interact with a polar short wave. The interaction of this short wave will create a shearing effect that will weaken the mid-level low pressure systems. And that is primarily the difference in the forecast over the past couple of days. Now, I'll show you what I mean. So here is the European model guidance here. And you can see our storm quickly marching across the country. Notice we no longer have a closed upper level low. It's more like just an open wave. And so as a result, our storm isn't able to intensify as quickly. That shows up even more so at 850 millibars. This signal right here, this is really key, right? Because you see how baggy and disorganized and ill-formed this 850 millibar low is? When you have a low pressure system like this, it means that your surface low pressure system is going to be slow to intensify. And you really don't see any type of rapid intensification until that 850 millibar low passes to the east of us and then rapidly explodes. Now, this process was occurring earlier in the forecast, which led to a colder solution. In fact, the last 0Z run, the last 0Z European guidance had a faster intensification. That led to a colder solution. So it's not so much models are trending one way or another. Model trends is really a poor way to describe what's actually happening here. What's actually happening is that we're getting sampling of the shortwave as it really is, and we're getting sampling of the polar shortwave that's going to be interacting with this storm. And as a result, our model guidance is better able to understand how those two features will interact. And because of that interaction, how our 850 millibar low is going to form. And what that does that slow formation, and we'll go to 850 millibar temperatures here. Notice, as our storm's approaching, we have cold air in place. As the low is forming and approaching, the warm air is able to push northward. As the low intensifies, then you start to see that sharp move back. Sharp cold air move back. Now notice, over the past couple of days, I've been pointing out, especially for premium members, that we've been getting like this gradient setting up at the central New Jersey, around the I-95 corridor. That's no longer the case in this scenario. Why? Because our low pressure system is no longer rapidly intensifying. And so what you end up with is a gradual cold air transport and a gradual changeover from a wintry mix rain on the I-95 corridor to ending as a little bit of snow, while all of your heavier snow continues to remain to the north and west of the I-95 corridor. And a perfect example of how important that change is your surface winds. If you're new to here, and again, welcome, thank you for coming. A key indicator in your snow forecast is the easterly wind. When you have an easterly wind like this, there is no way you're going to be able to forecast much of any snow until that wind backs to the northwest for the Jersey Shore and Long Island. Until the wind backs to the northwest and you have enough cold air transport at the same time with enough lifting, you're just going to be dealing with rain. So the difference between the 12Z guidance and the 0Z guidance really comes down to those surface winds. This is the model guidance as from 12Z. And this is the same guidance from 0Z last night. Notice the difference. Over central New Jersey and over the landmass, you have that northeasterly wind funneling cold air in from Canada and from New England. And your easterly wind is basically shunted down towards Delaware. So you don't get that direct easterly fetch moving all the way back into the Delaware River Valley. And so therefore your boundary layers are colder, your mid-levels are colder, you end up with a colder solution. Now, in the new guidance, that easterly wind goes right from the Atlantic all the way to the Delaware River. And so when you have that type of warm air transport, you end up with a warmer solution. Is there any support for a colder solution? Well, let's take a look at our water vapor satellite picture and see if we notice anything that could really stand out. And you guys let me know if you could see the drawings very well. We'll play with that. And of course, after I go through my speech, I'm going to answer all your questions and go over all of the details. So let's see here. We'll go with red. So this is the storm that we're going to be watching right here. In fact, let me increase the size of that. Right here. The idea here is that as this is diving through, the short wave that's up here is going to be coming in and then lifting out. And that's the key factor here. As this is coming in and heading towards the mid-Atlantic coast, the interaction with the short wave pulling northward like this is going to pull the storm and shear it. So this stretching that occurs here is what leads to the weakening of our 850 millibar low and prevents the ability for our storm to intensify. In order for that not to happen, what you need to have occur, and we'll zoom out a little bit. Let's see, let's try to get full disk east. So what we need to have happen going forward is the short wave up here, and we'll use blue. The short wave up here has to dive in and interact with this disturbance here in such a way that doesn't shear it. If we're going to see that change in the model guidance, it's going to have to be tonight and not delayed any further. If we don't see that change in 0Z guidance tonight, it's not happening. So when I worked with the forecast here, and I probably should have gone to a full image like that.
Honey.
Yep.
Somebody commented that like they can't see the
How's this?
screen on the main screen there. There we go.
Is this better? Yeah, this is better. Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know later. So next time. So what we're going to be watching for is to see if that interaction is going to happen. But right now, the way I see the storm playing out is that your heaviest snowfall is going to be towards your interior. We're looking at 8 to 12 inches of snow. This is going to be a heavy, wet snow. The environment that's in place here is supporting snow ratios between 8 to 1 and 10 to 1. So this is going to be a very heavy, wet snow. Some people are asking, how am I getting up to 12 inches? I'm still concerned about some mesoscale banding and some of this snowfall here in these areas north and west of the 700 millibar low. So I think a lot of people will be around 8 inches, but I wouldn't be surprised if we get a little bit of overperformance in these locations. This area right here, the red and the blue, might be tightened up. Okay, this could easily get pushed north of New York City in terms of the 4 to 8 inches, and it could be even tighter based on the guidance that I see for tomorrow. Or it could shift south if that colder solution actually occurs. So with that, with the 4 to 8 inches, any type of treatment on the roadways is going to prevent accumulation. So most of this is going to be on grassy surfaces. As you head down towards the south side of Long Island, central New Jersey, Philadelphia, 2 to 4 inches. Most of this is going to be on Sunday morning and on the grass and cold surfaces. Again, streets I think will remain just wet. And then down towards the Jersey Shore, you're pretty much dealing with rain, maybe a trace or an inch or so on some grassy surfaces at the very end of this storm. Well, let me go back. This is the 18Z guidance that just came out. And again, around this time period, at this time period in the evening, this is Saturday evening, okay, this is at about 10 p.m. There is very little organization here with that 850 millibar low. And so with that, our surface low down here is not intensifying. And so what you end up with as a result is more of an easterly wind component at the surface, and that's what leads to your warmer solution. What we need going forward, we'll zoom in here. And what we need for a colder solution, if you're looking for a colder solution or you want to know what you want to see in the model guidance, first of all, don't waste your time trying to compare the NAM 84 hours out and whether or not it matches up as it's approaching. Stick to the synoptic models, GFS European. With that being the case, what you'd want to see in the 12Z guidance is this 850 millibar low further south and more intense. Simple as that. I don't see it happening, but that's what we would have to look for to see it actually change and evolve. So with that, that's pretty much my thoughts on the storm. I know that some people were looking for some sort of presentation where I would say, hey, look, it's going to be all snow. There's just no support for that right now. We have the blocking developing. We don't really have the cold air able to lock in, and we don't have the wavelength to set up to have that intensification. In fact, let me zoom out here and make that point. let's see, at 500 millibars. You see, when we look at the current 500 millibar pattern here, we were going to have a problem with the storm when I saw this factor right here. You see how this ridge is located out here? It isn't amplified enough, and it's a little bit to the east. And because of that, we don't have the proper amplification to set up to allow for the storm to really intensify and take off. So we're close to a good pattern, but we're not there yet. And so this was going to always be a thread the needle type storm. This is why I stayed away from posting a lot of snow maps or issuing anything like going over 12 inches or anything of that nature, because we didn't have the right air mass. We didn't have the right 500 millibar pattern. So certainly some things need to be worked on, but definitely this storm is not the one that you're looking for. But it's a good indication of where we're heading towards. So with that, I am going to take all your questions first on the premium chat, and then of course on the on YouTube. Oh wow, look at that! Holy right, wow! You know, all you need is one good winter storm, and then all of a sudden everyone's here. Wow, that is 214 people. Why can't we do that in the summer? That's impressive. Wow. Okay, so I'm going to answer all your questions to the best of my ability, and go from there. So let's see here. So let's see here. Nice to be back. First of all, thank you everyone. I hope everyone had an excellent New Year's and holiday season, all that good stuff. It was certainly fun around here. New setup looks neat. Yep, we're going to continue to tweak it. Tonight's the first night. Probably going to have to add a camera. I'm going to have to add that, work on that. I don't know how to add that, but I'll figure it out. And it's definitely crowded. There's something going on this weekend. Very funny. First chance of a real snow in a couple of years. Yes, especially over the interior. I-95, I-95 is going to be tricky. It really is. But I think that those of you in the Poconos, Allentown, Scranton, a lot of Connecticut, and the Hudson River Valley, you guys are definitely locked in for a pretty nice little snowfall. What factors would cause more phasing between the short waves to result in a colder solution, and what factors could cause less interaction, thus warmer solution? It really comes down to the timing of these different short waves and how they're going to play out and work out. So let me pull up this right here. Okay. So this short wave right here is our storm. This short wave up here is our polar short wave. The way they interact is creating this mess. You see how it's kind of stretched out? And it looks like basically like taffy. So you're taking taffy, and instead of having a nice strong piece, you're going to chomp into it and probably lose a tooth. Instead, it's kind of stretched out. And so it's stretched and disorganized. And so because of that stretched and disorganized feature, it limits the ability for the coastal low to really intensify. Now, the track of the surface low is just fine. Any other time, the track of the surface low would lead to a widespread snowfall for the region. Okay, so the track isn't the issue. The issue is that because the low takes so long to intensify, the easterly wind component that takes place on Saturday afternoon warms up the entire boundary layer. So what you would need to see change in the 0Z guidance, which I'm not staying up for because I'm over 40 years old and I just get headaches then, so it's not good. So I'll check it out tomorrow morning. But what you want to see is this feature right here. Instead of just being all strung out and pulled apart like this, you want it concise and strong. In fact, let's see here. Let's pull up the 0Z guidance. What you want And yeah, let me add that. Let's see if it'll add it or not. Or not. Let me fix that 1 second, because I'm going to pull up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to compare the 12Z guidance and the 0Z guidance. Hopefully that actually works. Good. There it is. Okay. Sometimes you just have to refresh. Or in Nintendo days, pull it out, shake it, blow on it, and put it back in. So, here is this is the 12Z guidance right here. And you can see how disorganized it is. And then here is the difference here. That is the 12Z. Here is last night's 0Z. 12Z, not as intensified. 0Z last night, far more intensified. Let's do 850 millibars. So we'll clear this out. And we'll do East Coast. 850 millibar heights. Let's see here. Of course, no, it doesn't want to work. States. There it is. So again, this is the 12Z. Kind of stretched out, poorly organized until it gets to New England. And here's last night's colder solution. See the difference? Stretched out, stronger, colder. If you get this solution right here, then what happens is that the cold air transport is pulled in towards the coast and you end up with a colder solution. That's what you're going to have to look for at 0Z guidance. I don't expect it, but that's what you would have to look for. Okay. Does the second storm begin to provide cold air into the equation? Temperatures still warm. The cold front that moves through tonight introduces the cold air. And then after that, then we start to shift and then we start that battle with our second storm. I keep seeing H500 in reference of this storm. What is H500? I would assume that would be 500 millibar heights. Some spots at 10 millibars this is from Card. Some spots 10 millibars are over freezing. It got so warm that the warmest part has rotated from Europe to around Western Siberia. Let me pull up what he is talking about. So Card has been keeping an eye, if you're new to the channel, has been keeping an eye on the polar vortex, as we have been talking about for quite some time. And as you can see, our polar vortex is severely disrupted, not split yet, not expected to be split, but certainly disrupted. And when we take a look at the temperatures here, you can see some pretty impressive warming here above freezing right over the pole. So we're seeing that major stratospheric warming happening right now. So his question is around all the way to Europe again, or will it fade? Okay, so will the warming fade? There is signs that we'll see another surge of warm air once again, which is why I'm pretty confident that we'll see the high latitude blocking continue into February. So this is going to be a process that continues on through February, and then I think it shuts down pretty quickly late February into March. I wouldn't be surprised if we see the polar vortex strengthen above normal by the time we get to early March. Let's see here. With the potential for more zonal subtropical jet with a strong block, result is in a period which is very cold but dry because storm tracks are suppressed. That's a great question. So if we get this really impressive negative NAO block, which everyone's been dying for like 3 years. There is that potential that it causes a complete suppression of the subtropical jet stream and sends all the storms from Tennessee to North Carolina, and that's it. That has always been a threat with this pattern, and it certainly is a potential as we move through mid-January, and it's something that we're going to have to really keep an eye on to see whether or not that plays out. Does the southern storm that is missing us going to create the traffic that will enhance the blocking? Yes. For the upcoming storm, the low pressure system that's moving through now will set up that blocking. Let's see, Snowball should be happy because there's definitely snowfall heading towards his neck of the woods. So does this mean that we could get so sheared out we actually don't get much of precipitation shield at all? No, I don't see that happening at this time. I don't have any indication that would actually be a result. One thing that has been interesting is that we have seen a back off in QPF, but that's more due to the intensification of the storm. But there's still plenty of moisture to support an 8-inch snowfall to possibly a foot snowfall in a few isolated locations. So I certainly think that there's support for that. But I don't see any indication at this time. Again, we got another 2 days to watch this before we really lock in completely. But I don't see any indication at this time that the precipitation shield will be completely sheared apart. Could sea surface temperatures enhance surface low intensification more than models are depicting? Not in this scenario, and it's because the whole storm itself is moving pretty quickly, and the cold air mass that we're interacting with is a modified polar air mass. If we're talking about an Arctic air mass, like a pure Arctic air mass with like temperatures in the teens and 20s, absolutely, game on. But in this scenario, the gradient just isn't that strong. You need to make yourself bigger. Okay. Yeah, I apologize for that. But, live and learn. We'll get better with the viewing. And at least bring the camera square to the whiteboard. Yeah, I'm going to have to work on that. I do apologize.
It's all a work in progress.
Yes, it is. It's always so disappointed with the shift from I-95. I understand completely. Let's see. You might want to get a microphone to attach to your shirt. Hey, these guys are providing some great suggestions. And you know what? That might be something I'll have to look out and see. Maybe I could find it on Amazon or something. Yes. Check it twice. Unfortunately, Christmas already passed. But, we'll see. Are you able?
Christmas.
Yes, indeed. Are you able to screen share that screen? Well, you know what? We're definitely work on adding that. Football impacts of the storm aside from precipitation. What will winds be like? For which game? Overall, for the, let's see here, it's the Giants and Eagles. I don't think the winds are going to be too bad at the Meadowlands, about 10 to 20 miles per hour. Then again, the way both teams are playing, it might not matter either way. The Jets and the Patriots, again, those look like more like winds around 10 to 20 miles per hour, maybe gusting up to 25. The primary impact for that game is going to be snow. But everyone else, as far as the football game, shouldn't be too much of an issue. For future, I would angle the screen, your left side, more to the camera. Absolutely. You have Jackson, New Jersey, and a trace of 2 inches. Any chance for a colder solution? That is one area. I'll put it this way. The New Jersey coast and southern New Jersey, I'm pretty locked in with where I expect this precipitation event to play out. The way that the low pressure system develops, even if the 850 millibar low intensifies quicker than currently forecasted, just doesn't provide enough cold air transport to keep locations like Jackson, like Wildwood, Cape May, locations to south of Philadelphia, as a all frozen scenario. Could you see a little bit more snow? If you ended up with an inverted trough, maybe, but even that aspect is kind of disappearing from the forecast. It seems like you're way more bullish on snow than most models and other forecasts. Why do you think that is? Okay. I, first of all, I don't like comparing my forecast to other forecasters only because they're not here to defend it. So, as far as my forecasting process, the way I work with it is I do three things. One, what is the overall pattern that's in place? Two, what is the data, the observations I have in front of me? And three, what is the overall model theme that we're looking at? Now, in terms of the seasonal theme, seasonally speaking, the shortwaves in the subtropical jet stream have ended up stronger and more organized than what is being modeled in this synoptic model guidance 3-4 days out. So with that in mind, I wanted to give myself a leeway to give myself a colder solution if I needed to go colder, but not ignore the warm trend that we're seeing in the model guidance. And that warm trend is that evolution at 850 millibar low. So one thing I never want to do is jump from one extreme to the other, or put out an extreme solution 7 days out and create a model, a snow map 7 days out with extreme solutions, and then have to back off on it. So the idea with the forecast here is that, and let me go back and actually show it, is that in this area is where basically the red and the blue right here, this area right here is where I have the greatest uncertainty, in which I could see this forecast, if I need to, of cutting this down in size, and expanding this feature to all of New York, where you're just talking about a trace to 2 inches, and then you get this sharp gradient. This area right here, very confident in. This area in, very confident in. It's the I-95 corridor where that is going to be the influence. That's going to have the most impact as far as the 850 millibar low developing. If the 850 millibar low is more robust than what's currently being forecasted right now, then this area ends up with more snow. If it doesn't, then I have to cut this down in half as far as the size. Cut it down in half, probably have this red zone to the north of New York City, probably to King of Prussia. The blue zone probably to the north of Philadelphia and cutting through New York City. And this zone covering all of central New Jersey and Philadelphia. So it'd be a much tighter gradient, and you'll see many locations go from 6 inches of snow to 1 inch of snow or less because of that gradient. But if we get that intensification, or if the models quote unquote trend colder because of that 850 millibar low being stronger and more organized, then I don't have to be in a position where I have to rapidly change its forecast and then confuse everyone. All I have to do is make some slight adjustments and we're set. After this weekend, any potential snowstorms on the horizon? Not for next week. In fact, we have a pretty significant rainstorm I'm very concerned about with a low pressure system tracking towards the Great Lakes. In fact, here, let me pull that up here. After this storm blows through, we have this storm. And yes, it's rain, so I get it. Not everyone's excited about it, but I am very concerned about it, especially for locations where you have that 6, 7, 8 inches of snow on the ground with high water content, and then you add in another inch or two of rain. This is going to lead to some significant flooding problems that I'm very concerned about. So in New Jersey, our water table is already saturated. You get this heavy rainfall, you're definitely going to be dealing with flash flooding. Same thing in Philadelphia, New York City. Where we get that heavy snowfall setting up on Saturday night into Sunday, if we get this heavy rainfall event, be prepared for some significant flash flooding. It's going to be a concern. It's something that we're going to have to really keep an eye on to see how that plays out. You might want to get a Oh, reduced wireless lavalier microphone system. I'll have to check that out. I will definitely check that out. Can you comment on 12Z Canadian solution? Do I have the 12Z Canadian solution? Let's see. Well, let's see what the 12Z Canadian does. I'm going to comment on it. Let's see. I guess the key thing would be to take a look at the 850 millibar conditions, and we'll use the winds to determine the 850 millibar low. Now that's interesting. So the Canadian produces that intensifying 850 millibar low. Let's see what it does with the temperatures here. Okay, well, we'll do surface. Pretty good intensifying low pressure system. That really hasn't changed all that much from guidance to guidance. Let's see. Thickness, precipitate water values. Temperature anomalies. Here we are. So let's see what the thickness does here. Well, it's a slightly colder storm, but still dealing with the same situation of delay of the 850 millibar low. And the surface low on the guidance is awfully further west than the rest of the model guidance. This basically becomes vertically stacked. Canadian usually does produce some rather strong solutions. So usually I don't like using the Canadian all that much, as it tends to produce some over amplification because of convective feedback. And the first thing I notice is that the surface low is under the 500 millibar low while intensifying. That is an error, and that is a reason why you would throw out that guidance. Unfortunately, to get this many people in the summer usually means a hurricane's headed our way. Yeah, that's true. 3 inches of snow would be 3 times more than Union County had last year. That would be true. When was the last winter storm that you would consider an easy forecast for I-95 with everyone getting 12 inches of snow and no gradients? Oh, wow. I'd have to think of back to back in 2010. Since 2010, almost every storm has just been a challenge to forecast for. But it's been a while. The storm is trending. Insert your favorite direction on Twitter. It's just hilarious. I guarantee you, it's true with every storm, but I guarantee you going forward that we will see the storm is trending north, south, east, and west all in the same time period on X. Guarantee it. It happens every time. Not to get ahead of ourselves, but should we be concerned about the possibility of heavy rain? Yep, we just talked about that, Peter. Yes, I am very concerned. And I've been warning everybody that, hey, look, this could be a pretty significant situation. Steve, the second storm I'm referring to is Tuesday, Wednesday. Okay, so the storm on Tuesday and Wednesday is going to be an interior storm. There might be a secondary low pressure system that develops, but the overall storm is going to be too warm. That secondary low is probably going to form around the triple point, which is where the warm front, cold front, and included front meet. I wouldn't be surprised to see that taking shape probably around New Jersey and right around central New Jersey, and really enhance that heavy rainfall. So it's something that I'm definitely concerned about, and we'll be watching as we continue to study that storm. It is something that could really lead to some significant flash flooding, especially over northern New Jersey and portions of the Hudson River Valley. How does the current PV stretch possible split affect the model output? There's going to be a ton of volatility. There is a very strong signal for a west-based negative NAO. The question is, how does the tropical forcing interact with this whole stretching and blocking, which is why we're seeing this split between the MJO going into a neutral state and the MJO going into phase 4, 5, and 6. If it goes into a neutral state, the subtropical jet stream is going to be able to interact with the polar jet stream and all this cold air. So that's going to be something that we're definitely going to be watching for. But I would not trust any storm details 5-7 days out at this point based on all the volatility that we're seeing. No need for that. Go Birds. Well, look, I have nothing against the Eagles except for the fact that they attack Santa Claus. That's all I'm saying. Can you add a note to the premium update in the morning about whether or not you're seeing any change pointing towards a colder solution? I always do. There will be updates early in the morning along with a video. So obviously if there's a much colder solution on the way, I won't be the only one seeing it. And most likely you'll definitely see a major update from me if that happens. In Union County here on the Dang 95 line, tonight's audience will give you the info you need or tomorrow to lock it in. Okay, so Melissa, I am pretty confident with the forecast right now. The 0Z guidance will lock it in tonight for me. And then it's pretty much just making some minor tweaks from there. Snowboss has, in your long-range thoughts for premium, you brought up a quickly weakening El Nino heading to neutral and then to another La Nina. I can't survive another La Nina for next winter so fast. Why are so many La Ninas? Very frustrating. That's a great question, Snow. I think there's a lot of research that would suggest that this is a factor with climate change, but we need more information. Part of that is that because of the way that our oceans are warming, there is some theories that would suggest that would lead to a balance and the Earth trying to balance out that warming. And so you end up with more La Ninas. But more research needs to be done. But I would be shocked if we see a strong La Nina take shape here. But we'll see what happens. We're kind of in uncharted territories. So Rob says, so essentially we need to eat the cutter to get the negative NAO, and it will be here for March. Yes and no. Yes, you need the cutter. You always do. To lock in the block. How long it lasts? Let's say through mid-February. We'll go from there. You may have Cade issues with the rainstorm over the fresh snowpack. That is a great point for Tuesday. Here's what I'm going to be watching for. Ahead of the storm on Tuesday, how strong is that southerly wind ahead of the storm? Because if the boundary layer really warms up, then what you end up with is a lot of fog and then heavy rain and then a rapid melt off. But if the southerly wind is initially weak, then over the interior, we'd have to be concerned with freezing rain initially, maybe a little snow sleet mixed in, until we get our boundary layer temperatures to warm up above freezing. And ahead of the storm, low temperatures on Tuesday morning are going to be in the teens and 20s. So it's not like we're starting off in the 40s. So that is certainly something that is a concern. The NAM is running. All right, I'll play games. Let's see. We'll pull up the NAM guidance and see if, in fact, we'll zoom out here. The United States. We're only 3 hours out. So I'm not expecting as far as any type of significant changes. One thing I wouldn't do, I wouldn't make any forecast changes based on the NAM way out, at 84 hours or 78 hours. But I don't mind taking a look at it. we'll go to tropical tidbits, and we're at 9 hours right now. We'll pull up the 500 millibar vort, and I will come back to it. I'll put it in the background here. I'll come back to it and see if there's anything that changes. Next chance of snow could be by mid-month, maybe. In terms of snowfall impact, in terms of snowfall potential, remember this time last week there was barely a hint of a storm. So, and I don't want a hot and humid summer. Yeah, me neither. I completely agree with you on that. All right, let's check out YouTube. It seems it's been pretty busy. Look forward to hearing your thoughts. Thank you. First of all, thank you for everyone watching. 193 people. We're over 200 at one point. That's impressive. So thank you. Let's see. So as always, the best questions I will answer. I'm just concerned that. All right. Let's see here. Do you blame Roker? No, I don't. Winter storm Jonas about to return, 15 to 20 inches plus. Not this storm. Good evening. Sam Champion said 12 to 14 inches in New York City Metro if the track is right. If this was a scenario where we had more cold air, I could definitely see that being a case. Happy New Year, Garden. Let's see. Sounds like game over for Central New Jersey. For heavy snowfall, for the heaviest snowfall, most likely, yes. I don't see Central New Jersey pushing into that 8-inch level. No way. 4 inches, if that development happens a little bit faster, maybe. But I don't see any indication of a serious shift. It's a fine line. Let's see here. You're kidding, right? Never. I'm never kidding.
Not about the weather, though.
No. 0Z, we trust. This is a rainstorm for 95 southeast. Southeast? Absolutely. Jersey Shore? Yes. Sounds like a lot of moving pieces to me. Always is. Absolutely. The thing with the winter storm that... Oh, we got more data coming out. Now we're at the 15 hours. So far, not really seeing any changes. The key factors with winter storms is that you have a lot of moving parts. And to get a winter storm and to get it locked in to support heavy snowfall, it can be a very difficult process. And there's sometimes higher expectations than what's realistically possible. Boo easterly winds. Yeah, I agree. What are you expecting 0-3 guidance to show? Any changes or are we screwed? All right, so I'm going to take a look at the GFS and European later on. And the reason why tonight's really important is because tonight is when we have all the players on the field, full sampling, everything on the board. So if there's going to be any type of shift or change to the way that the 850 millibar low forms, it's going to happen in the synoptic scale models tonight. If that doesn't happen, then the forecast I have is pretty much locked in, or I might have to go a little bit warmer, not much, but maybe a little bit warmer. As I was saying, making the gradients a little bit tighter in central New Jersey and New York City. But tonight is tonight. So if we don't see that change in the 0Z guidance, then we pretty much are locked in. Why are you saying Northwest New Jersey might be 8 to 12 inches of snow? Because that's what I'm forecasting. Basically what I'm expecting is that generally most locations are going to be around that 8-inch mark. And then you're going to have some heavier pockets pushing up to close to a foot. The 12 inches is going to be rare. The 8 inches is going to be more widespread. Do you think evaporation and dynamic cooling as well as Cade will be enough for Philly to get a few inches? I feel like Cade events are underdone sometimes. For this storm, I don't think you have the proper mechanics to set up that type of environment. In terms of dynamic cooling, well, that's part of that whole 850 millibar low process. Again, if the 850 millibar low is stronger than what we're forecasting right at this moment, then you enhance the dynamic cooling, you enhance the ability to create a stronger thermal gradient vertically and horizontally, and that leads to a far more impressive snowfall event. But right now, I don't have the data to go any further than that. Not really much of a Cade event, though. When you look at the severe weather component for the second storm around Tuesday, I know it is far away, but the 850 millibar winds look high. Yeah. Here's the thing with the 850 millibar winds. We've been seeing this type of forecast for quite some time with various storms through the fall and in the winter. Not all of them have verified. I'm going to be keeping an eye on it, obviously, and dive into more data. But the key with those 850 millibar winds is that we get proper mixing to get those winds down. So I certainly like the idea of sustained winds pushing probably 15 to 30 miles per hour on Wednesday, Tuesday night into Wednesday. Whether or not we see a full mix down of those wind gusts, something I'm still going to be struggling with to see whether or not that actually works out. So what I'm going to be doing is studying the soundings that we look at and see whether or not that mixing will be enough to get those 850 millibar winds down to the surface. But I like the idea right now based on the pressure gradient of sustained winds of 15 to 30 miles per hour. So it's going to be a wet, windy period of weather Tuesday night into Wednesday. In 2050, the rain snow line is going to be by the Canadian border. I hope not. Hey, do you think that this upcoming storm will be classified as a KU storm? I don't think so. No. But it could be an interesting storm in terms of the scale. But I don't, under Costa Mussolini, most of those storms are coastal storms and nor'easters, whereas this storm, which will still be impressive, will be one more focused towards the Great Lakes. You said in the past live streams that the long-range setup is the best you've seen in the past 4 years. And I'm going to assume that includes January, February 2021. Yeah. It is, which is sad to say. But the question is, we have the pattern, is it going to produce fruit? Which I don't know. And I never claim that I know exactly what's going to... As I always say when I'm talking about the long range, yes, there's going to be a high potential for winter storms. Yes, it's going to be cold air. But I have no idea whether that means you're going to get a half an inch or 10 inches. No clue. How is the forecasted long range different from what happened 3 years ago? In this case, we're getting better disruption of the polar vortex. I like the evolution of El Nino in this one in terms of where the tropical convection is forcing around the date line, whereas other times it was more dispersed out over the Pacific. I also like that the evolution of the blocking, the negative NAO pattern, is a little bit further west than in 2021. But 2021 was a nice year, but it's not the same scenario. It's like the supermarket. Just say S and all hell breaks loose. Yeah, pretty much. Guess I'm gonna have to move north. Maybe. Hi Steve. Love the new interactive screen. Thank you. Will this storm be the forerunner of storms to come this year and set the stage for what is to come later this winter? In terms of the interaction on the coastal plain, it's a possibility. It could give us an idea on on East Coast cyclogenesis and how the thermal gradient with the sea surface temperatures influence low pressure system development and could lead to some surprises. But right now, I don't like to use a storm as a model in season. It's better to do that when you're out of season and looking back to see what you can learn and become a better forecaster. But to try to play the last game in the current game could leave you blind to what's actually happening out in front of you because you just close your eyes to just whatever happened with the last storm, just copy and paste. So I don't like to do that because then I could potentially miss some clues that I would normally find with forecasting the storm. Could we expect to see more favorable pattern for snowstorms along the East Coast, especially southeast of I-95? The potential is there. I don't know whether it's going to be realized or not, but the potential is the best that we've seen in 4 years. Is it true that the further the low is off the coast, the better it is for snow in New Jersey? Depends. If there's kind of like a perfect spot. And what you want is a storm track that goes from roughly the Delaware coastal waters to 40 north, 70 west. So basically, let me zoom in. A track that goes from here to here. So if you have a track that goes in this direction here, then what that leads to is a perfect northeasterly wind over New Jersey and setting up widespread snowfall. Let's see. I think we might get 1 inch of snow. Let's see. In Dayton, Ohio, possibly. Sure. Let's see. I'm going to try to find the best question. Real life. Oh, cool. I'll check it out. Let's see. Steve, I noticed whenever you stream wearing a collared shirt, that means you're prepared to tell us bad news for a warmer solution. We need the NYNJPA weather t-shirt, which equals colder solution. You know, I didn't know that. I didn't consider that. I wonder if that's a psychological thing.
Could be.
That's a great point. I never really thought about that. That's a great point. You know what? You might be right. You might be right. Will there be thunder snow? Right now, I don't think so. Wow. Okay, let's see here.
There's a section where things somebody had to deal with somebody. So just
yeah, I see that. My wife did an amazing job of whoever that troll was. What?
Don't feed them, people, please. Just
yes, indeed. What model does best with 850 and 925 millibar temperatures? Great question. Okay, so it depends on this time scale that you're forecasting for. So when you're forecasting for synoptic scale systems, you want to use the European or the GFS. Really, the European does the best job in forecasting the 850 millibar load track and the temperature gradient. But when it gets down to forecasting the thermal gradient, let's say over New Jersey, right? You're forecasting over I-95. What you want to use is a mix of the HRR guidance and the NAM guidance. You could also use the RAP if you want to, but that's kind of getting phased out. And the reason why is because the mesoscale models could pick up different characteristics within that gradient that can give you an idea of where you can get convective banding, slantwise banding, and snowfall potential. So you want to use a mix. So you want to use the right tool for the question that you're trying to answer. And it takes time and a lot of failure to understand which model you're supposed to use and when. Thank you, Isaiah. Let's see here. So northeast Monmouth County should be all rain. Well, rain and snow. What are your thoughts on more specific timing? I like precipitation to break out between 5 and 7 p.m. on Saturday, continue on through the night, and then on Sunday, let's say from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., the precipitation should start to cut down, and then we have pesky snow showers after that. Personally, I think the Euro might have the rain center line a bit too north. Yeah, I mean, that could certainly be an issue, which is why I stayed south of the European ensembles. I did kind of stay close to the European ensemble guidance, but not the operational. I'm sorry. The operational was a little bit too far north for me. The ensembles was a little bit too far south, so I kind of broke it in between. My neighbor called me a quack for looking and studying meteorology. Meteorological models.
Ignore it.
Yeah, they're just jealous. They're probably just learning how to use a computer. Which model do you believe has the best handle on the storm? I'll be able to answer that question tomorrow. Love your Godzilla display. Thank you. And I have even more. This is like a tenth of it. Might be onto something. Let's see what. Wow, it's after 9 o'clock. Jeez. All right.
And Twitter is rather busy.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, you got a lot to go through.
Oh my God.
I'll let you choose that one because
I might be here till 10. Let's see
here
here.
till bedtime.
Next year in snow could be mid-month. Let's see. Can we do a rant against naming winter storms?
Oh, please don't start that.
I'm just going to put it this way. Winter storms are not named. Period. Let's see here. North Lancaster County is very close to the red zone. I wasn't sure what you meant when you said you'd have to tighten up the map. With that area most likely... Let me pull that up. When I say tighten up, I'm going to be focusing here. I kind of like this forecast out here. I don't think I'm going to change this all that much. It's this area right here that leads to volatility in the forecast. Out here, I think I'm pretty good. I think that's a pretty reasonable setup here for about 4 to 8 inches of snow. It's when I'm getting, let's say from, let me zoom in. From Westchester, okay, in Pennsylvania, up to Pottstown, on east through New York City and Long Island. So that's basically where I'm going to have to tweak this forecast one way or the other. The people complaining for the 2 to 4, 3 to 6 cracks me up. They literally had 0 snow last winter. This is a good start. Yep. I mean, look, I get it. Everyone wants to see a snowstorm. Steve, regarding your expected La Nina forecast, any ideas of the state of the NAO? I think you can tell where I'm going with that. Way too far. Way too far out. We'll talk about it in August. That is way out. Okay, so what do we have on X?
Hold on, give me a second.
This should be fun. We haven't had this much interaction in a long time on X.
It's a busy night. Because everybody wants snow, except me.
Well, I mean, look, it's nice.
Winter's rough on me, alright? Be kind.
Holy smokes, look at that.
I told you. Alright, there's like...
You here. Yes, I'm here.
Well, yeah, okay. Just pay attention.
Let's see here. All right, let me...
hold on, because you can just scroll and keep it up. So.
Thanks as always. Okay, let's see. Is everything fully sampled? It will be tonight. 0Z tonight. Yes.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
They asked that a couple times in more depth. Lower down.
Mug is legit. Oh yeah, Batman mug.
Spirit
Great analysis. Thank you. But so which Central New Jersey? Okay. Let's see. Do you think New York City could end up being all snow? Not at this time. No. let's see here. My backyard. Whoop. When does everything get fully? Someone really wants a lot of sampling.
They really were.
Okay, so let me answer the sampled question just like this. Tonight, 0Z, what's starting to run right now, will be fully sampled. So that's why we're locking in tonight with whatever comes out. 18Z Euro trended better. It did a little bit better, but not enough to change my forecast. I don't like changing forecasts on 18Z guidance, whether it's GFS or European. I know a lot of people say, hey, it's just as good. I'd rather have fully sampled all the data in there, especially with such a volatile forecast like this. Let's see. Yep. How much does water temp play into the precipitation type with these types of storms? Huge. This is why an easterly wind is really huge. And I have been studying this and talking about this since I was a little kid. Okay, so here's a general rule. East wind is death for snow forecasts. If you get an easterly wind, you're going to get warmer air. Because what happens is that wind takes all of that warm air from the ocean and drives it right into the boundary layer. So you could have 850 millibar temperatures around freezing, but your surface temperatures are in the upper 30s, which means you get rain, a cold, annoying rain. So the reason why I was showing those surface winds is that the 0Z guidance last night had that northeasterly wind from much of New Jersey, which means you're getting air coming in from New England, which means that you keep your boundary layer cold. Once your wind shifts to the east, forget about it. You can forget about snow because that easterly wind is going to warm up your boundary layer. We had a storm one year where we started out with an Arctic air mass and we were in the teens. That easterly wind kicked up, and within 3 hours, Belmar, New Jersey was over freezing, and an hour later, so was Trenton. So you could see the power of that easterly wind. How much will the MJO impact the pattern after this storm? Still working on that. We're going to learn a lot more by Friday and seeing where exactly the MJO is being observed. And hopefully I'll get a better idea of that and update that on Monday. Let's see here. Are models too aggressive with Lake Cutter next week? I don't think so. Okay, so I like the idea of a lake cutter because it matches up and works well with the way that we're going to develop the high latitude blocking, right? So that's going to be needed. You can't change that or else you change the whole fundamental evolution of the pattern. So nix that. Could we get a secondary low pressure system? Yes, I definitely like that idea, but it won't be the primary low. It will be the secondary low, which means all it does is enhance the heavy precipitation. I know that some people are possibly looking for a colder solution, perhaps. Right now, I don't see any support for that. Really, if anything, the only thing I'm really going to be concerned about is frozen precipitation lingering in the Poconos and Catskills. But even then, that'll be overcome with the heavy rainfall. Let's see here. I'll keep going. What do you think about the 18Z Euro? All right, you got my attention. I'm going to have to go check it out. And how have you been watching the Monarch show? Yes, I love it. I absolutely love it. I've been annoying my wife and just watching it constantly. So, okay, so let's see here. We have the NAM coming out, but that's not really that important to me because look, I mean, you're kind of at the edge here in terms of forecasting, so I really don't want to use that. But let's take a look. DC Central to 1. Coating to 1 inch. Yeah, coating. Maybe an inch of snow on George Washington, Let's see here. So what I want to do is study Pull up the 18Z guidance here. There's our 500 millibar low. See, it's still kind of sheared out in this solution. It's really getting torn apart here. Let's see the 850 millibar low. Yeah, I'm not liking that. I mean, it gets a little bit stronger than the 12Z guidance. And this aspect right here could be an interesting trend looking at the 0Z guidance. But look at your 850 millibar temperatures in this scenario. Let's zoom in. Let's see, northeast. Okay. You're still warming up pretty well in this scenario. So your rain snow line's still back up here on Sunday morning. So slightly colder, not enough for me to make a change in the forecast. Very interesting trend coming with the TPV on the NAM. All right, you got my attention. Let's take a look at it. It's a robust system on the NAM. I just don't like. See, I don't like using the NAM for synoptic scale questions. I'm always very skeptical of that. Let's see here. So I'm not really seeing a colder solution for Tuesday. I don't know where that came from. You'd have to see a fundamental change in the pattern. It's a polar vortex coming in the next couple of weeks. I definitely think it will be an influence. Any chance of track changing for Western Pennsylvania for Saturday, Sunday snow? No, that'd be a huge change and a huge bust in all the model guides. I don't see that happening at all. Use the 12K NAM. Okay. All right, let's see here. All right, let's see what we have here. This is out to 42 hours. I'm not really seeing anything that really stands out to me. It's a little stronger, but nothing that's really catching my eye. Well, I think for tonight, let's see, it is 9:17. Do you have any more questions on X?
You might have covered it already.
What we got here? Also, thoughts if you could have rapid cooling with heavy band in New York City. Okay, so this is going to be the last one I'm going to cover before I lose my voice because it's starting to go.
Yeah, I think I need some tea.
Yeah, definitely some tea after this. Absolutely. Okay, so when you have an intensifying storm, what you have is rapid rising air, and that rising air cools the atmosphere. And when you have that rapid cooling, you end up with very heavy precipitation. And in a winter storm, that can lead to some very heavy snowfall. In this scenario, if I'm going to look for that based on what I'm seeing with the timing, it'll most likely happen in that situation in southern New England, like Rhode Island, for example, or right around Boston. In fact, right when the Jets are playing the Patriots, you could be watching a heavy band developing right over the stadium. The reason why is because of the timing of the storm. The storm really starts to get its act together once it gets past probably about southeast of Long Island. Then you see the whole storm start to organize. Now, in previous guidance, we were seeing some hints of that because the whole storm was organizing much faster. So far, what we've been seeing in the 12Z guidance and what we're seeing in the observations right now is a suggestion of a more sheared out low pressure system and a slower developing system, therefore a warmer solution. If we start to see in the 0Z guidance, and I'm talking about the GFS and the European guidance, I really don't want to use the NAM guidance for this. If we see that process being faster, then your lifting is faster over the northern mid-Atlantic, and that cools the entire boundary layer. And so that leads to the snowfall. So no snow for Northeast PA. You need to check the forecast. That's not what I'm saying at all. And with that, I think I'm going to call it a night before I completely lose my voice, because after all, I got to do videos tomorrow morning, right? Thank you for joining this live chat, the biggest one we've had so far it would be this year because it's a new year. So thank you again. Thank you for all your questions. I really appreciate it. And we'll continue to keep an eye on the evolution of the storm and see how it plays out. In the meantime, as always, stay safe out there.